connecting monorails to widespread death and destruction. Here are 10 times when Disney rides went horrifyingly wrong. Number 10. Boating disaster. For most people, a trip to Walt Disney World is the experience of a lifetime. There are exciting rides, recognizable characters, delicious food, and great weather. They're in the majority for the most part. For others, however, it is a total nightmare. Take the woman who was injured while driving a boat after she smacked into a Disney ferry. According to the report from the Orange County Sheriff's Office, a 61-year-old woman needed to be treated for fractured ribs, a collapsed lung, and severe back pains after she became wedged between two vessels. It happened after her and her husband rented a boat near the Treehouse Villas, but apparently they weren't very good drivers. The captain of the ferry boat claimed that he saw the couple driving recklessly. Then they smacked right into his ferry, causing the woman to get jammed up and stuck between the vessels. It sounds like her injuries were her own fault, or possibly her husband's. They were acting foolish and paid for their recklessness. She likely made a full recovery, but it's doubtful that she'll be returning to Disney World to go on another boat ride anytime in the near future. Number 9. Bad bus trip. When it comes to Walt Disney World, it's not only the rides that can be dangerous. Even just trying to get to the rides can prove to be a dangerous event. Nobody knows this better than the 15 people who were recently transported to the hospital after getting in a bus accident near Epcot Center. According to the Florida Highway Patrol, the bus was carrying 51 visitors when it smashed into another bus near the toll plaza for Epcot. Luckily, the 15 guests only sustained minor injuries and there were no fatalities. But still, it could have been a lot worse. In accidents like these, everyone should just be thankful that they were safe, even though they were knocked around and are a little worse for the wear. But perhaps the worst part is that the visitors never got to have their Disney experience and instead spent the majority of their vacations sitting in hospital beds. I know I'd hate that. Imagine spending hundreds or even thousands of dollars to travel to Disney World and experience the amusement park only to get injured by a bus accident. Number 8. Disney Gondola Mayhem. This was some serious mayhem that unfolded at Walt Disney World when there was an accidental collision on the gondola. Even the less extreme rides or transportation can be sources of danger, especially when equipment gets old and stops working well. The Reedy Creek Fire Department had to evacuate guests from the gondolas after a dramatic conclusion that caused the lines to be shut down and closed indefinitely. It happened between 8 and 9 at night at the Riviera Caribbean Beach Skyliner station. The gondola was supposed to stop and dispatch the passengers at the station, but something went wrong with the cables. The gondola got jammed, and all the other gondolas ended up smashing into it like a nightmarish game of bumper cars. This caused the vehicles to become crushed, shattering the glass windows and making the visitors fear for their lives. Some guests were stuck inside broken gondolas high above the ground for up to 3 hours. However, none of the guests ended up being seriously injured. The company tried to make up for the terror and alarm by making it up to the guests with comps. At least they all got a $100 gift card. Have you ever been to Walt Disney World? What was your favorite part? Tell me about your experience there in the comments below. Then remember to subscribe to American Eye if you haven't already, and enjoy more exciting videos just like this one. Number 7. Mission Space, Mission Murder. Now, this was absolutely a serious disaster. This is arguably one of the most tragic things that has ever happened at Walt Disney World. A young boy, only 4 years old, recently died while on the rocket ship ride known as Mission Space. According to a report from the Seattle Times, the boy died from a heart condition that was aggravated by physical and emotional stress. The condition caused the boy to have an irregular heartbeat, and it turned out that the rocket ship was just too much for him to handle. No one was prosecuted for criminal charges, but the boy perished due to a totally unforeseen tragedy. Mission Space is one of the most popular rides at Disney World, in which visitors are spun inside of a giant centrifuge that is twice the normal force of our gravity. But it's a very dangerous ride. Many visitors end up being taken to the hospital immediately after with dramatic chest pain. As for this young boy, he really had no business getting on the ride. It was a tragic accident, and Disney was sure to give their condolences and sympathies to the child's family. Number 6. River Rapids Massacre. Amusement park and massacre are not two things you expect to hear in the same sentence, and yet in 2016 there was a horrifying massacre at the largest theme park in Australia known as Dream World. This isn't technically Disney World, but it is the Australian equivalent. In any case, 4 people were brutally killed while riding the Thunder River Rapids attraction. It happened when the raft that the 4 people were inside of somehow flipped over with the people inside of it, resulting in their immediate and violent deaths. 2 people were thrown from the ride and killed, while the other 2 were trapped inside of the raft. This was incredibly shocking because the ride had been operating since 1986 with no incidents like this ever occurring. According to witness reports, people were running out of the ride crying because the scene was so horrific. How did this happen? It's unclear. but some type of major malfunction occurred where the raft was improperly weighted or aligned with the path it was supposed to travel on, and it went totally out of control. This is just one of the dangers that rides at theme parks can contain. On the park's website, the Thunder River Rapids ride is described as a moderate thrill, but there was nothing moderate about this deadly accident. Number 5. Disney's Dangerous Avatar Ride. Apparently, one of the newest rides at Disney World has proved to be a little bit too exciting and intense for some people. According to a report from Fox News, a whole pile of medical-related issues have been happening ever since the new Avatar ride opened up at Disney World. In a report in which the theme park disclosed ride-related injuries, it was stated that several different people have gotten dizzy and passed out on the Avatar-themed ride within just a short time of its opening. The ride is called Flight of Passage, and it's a 3D simulator that takes you on a remarkable aerial tour of the world of Pandora from the Avatar movie. But as it turns out, the illusion is a little bit too realistic for some people, and they've left the ride dizzy, ill, and some people have even passed out in the middle of it. But then again, people pass out on just about every ride. In this same incident report, it was stated that other park guests fainted on the Incredible Hulk roller coaster and even on the Harry Potter ride at Universal Studios. Number 4. The Tower of Terror. Literally. One of the oldest and most infamous rides at Disney California is the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. It's a pretty standard ride in which you enter the elevator only to drop down suddenly, giving you a sudden rush of butterflies in your stomach. But just recently, somebody got a few more butterflies than they bargained for. According to state officials, a man fell off the platform while waiting in line to get on the ride. He fell about 25 feet from the main platform after climbing over the barrier and losing his balance. Climbing over the barrier? It sounds like mischief that ended up badly for him. In this case, it looks like it was the man's own fault. He fell, got injured, broke some bones, and was transported to the hospital where he eventually made a full recovery. But this wasn't the only accident that happened at the Tower of Terror. Since its opening in 2004, at least one guest had a seizure on the ride, and a young girl had her eyes burned from a flash of light. But after both incidents, state investigators declared the ride to be completely safe with absolutely no hazards. Number 3. Rock and Roller Coaster of Doom. It's not only rides in the United States that contain unforeseen dangers. There are Disney theme parks all over the world, and this one occurred in France. Specifically, Disneyland Paris, where a 14-year-old girl from Spain recently died after riding the Rock and Roller Coaster. She was found unconscious when the ride came to a stop, and even after the park employees tried to revive her back to consciousness, she would still not awaken. By the time the ambulance arrived, she was officially declared deceased and transported out of the park. The ride was closed down and the French police launched an investigation. What's really mysterious about this incident is that as of the time of the girl's death, nobody could say why she died. It's likely that she had a previous medical condition, like a weak heart or a congenital heart defect, which perhaps caused her to become far too excited on the exhilarating ride and die from some kind of heart failure. This would be quite similar to another accident that happened on the Rock and Roller Coaster at Disney MGM Studios in Florida just the year before, when a boy of only 12 years old was declared dead after park employees found him unconscious when the ride came to an end. Some people's hearts just aren't built for roller coasters. There really should be stronger screening for heart problems so people know if they're able to enjoy thrill rides without deadly consequences. Number 2. Toy Story Tragedy. Speaking of bad hearts, here's a man who reportedly had a heart attack immediately after riding Toy Story Mania. What's really bizarre is that this is the last ride you'd expect to give anyone a heart attack. It's about as harmless as it gets, considering it's a Toy Story ride for kids. But that didn't stop the 54-year-old man from dropping dead immediately after getting off the ride at Disney's Hollywood Studios. Of course, the man's heart attack probably had nothing to do with the ride, and it was just a coincidence. But it's not the only one. Between January and March of 2020, around the same time this person had his heart attack, there were at least 10 other injuries that happened. A young girl had a seizure while riding the Millennium Falcon, a 74-year-old woman fractured her leg while trying to climb into a boat at the Magic Kingdom, and so on and so forth. The only ride that didn't report any incidents was Legoland Florida. It seems that Legoland is the safest place to go, at least compared to these Disney theme parks. Number 1. When monorails collide. Another extremely dangerous thing that someone can do at Disney World is take the monorail. Of course, more than 99% of the time, the monorail is completely safe, bringing visitors from one part of the park to another. But back in July of 2009, 2 monorails collided at the Disney World Resort, resulting in the death of one of the drivers. It happened around 2 o'clock in the morning with a handful of happy guests returning from Epcot. But then, disaster struck. The train slammed into the back of another train, crushing the driver inside of the monorail driver's box. He actually had to be cut out of the wreckage by first responders, and he was then pronounced dead at the scene. As for the horrified guests who bore witness to this tragedy, they were all okay. At least physically. The ride was closed down while an investigation could play out, but the monorails did eventually get going again. What's really unfortunate, other than the young man's untimely death, was that this happened to be the first fatality ever on the Disney World monorail system. Hopefully, it'll also be the last. After watching this video, tell me something. Will you ever get on another Disney ride again? Let me know in the comments, and thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe and come back soon for another awesome video right here on American Eye.